Okay, thank you, Megan. I'll start with a little bit about who I am. I'm a senior sample manager consultant. I've been doing sample manager consulting for over 20 years, primarily in the chemical and petrochemical industry. My experience is as a developer, so I've worked on a lot of sample manager implementations and upgrade projects, software design, also business analysis, and I've even done support. And I have a pretty good knowledge of interfaces, particularly SMIDI, which is the interface to SAP, and SMPIMS, which is the process historian interface. I have not worked in the laboratory side of the house, but having worked with folks from the laboratory for over 20 years, I have picked up a pretty good knowledge of the workflow, the work processes of the laboratory, and how the information flows there. So I have a pretty good knowledge of that as well. So that gives you some idea of my background. We'll look at today's agenda. We're going to go over and discuss sample manager upgrade approaches. We're going to talk about how to choose the right upgrade approach for you, what the challenges are with each upgrade approach, and then at the very end, we'll have an opportunity to take your questions. All right, before we start with the approaches, we're going to look at why do sample manager upgrades. So these are some of the primary reasons why you would do a sample manager upgrade. There may be others that aren't here, but in my experience, these are the ones that pop up the most. And number one on the list is maintain supportability from Thermo Fisher. For those of you who may not be aware, well, Thermo Fisher, first off, is like any software company. Of course, they're more than a software company, but they produce software. And they're constantly and consistently producing new versions. And as they do that, the old versions, they spend less and less of their resources on maintaining or supporting that old version. And at some point, they say, we're no longer going to support that version. So for those of you who may not be aware, version 10 of Sample Manager and every version older is already out of support from Thermo Fisher. And version 11.0 is scheduled to be desupported in December of 2018, so only a few months away. So if anything, the pace of the upgrades, and particularly the pace that the older versions get desupported, seems to have picked up. So this is a key driver for upgrades. And similarly, you may have the same exact scenario with your infrastructure. So this would be your application server, maybe the hardware or the version of Windows that it's running is old. It could also be the database software, so the Oracle or SQL Server. Those companies do the same thing. They put out new versions and stop supporting old versions. You may also be looking to reduce customization, custom code in your sample manager system to decrease support cost. And you may be looking to reduce infrastructure costs. One of the main ways that we're seeing that happening nowadays is people are moving to web hosting, or also the cloud, known as the cloud environment. So this is where providers give, they host servers over the internet, so you would actually run Sample Manager over the internet. And the big names out there are Amazon and Google, and there's quite a few others. You may be looking to take advantage of new Sample Manager features. There have been quite a few of those, and we're going to look at those later in the presentation that have been introduced in the latest versions of Sample Manager. Or you may be looking to improve your work processes. This is another a big one, and really every Sample Manager upgrade is an opportunity to do that. So this is something you may be looking to do. So these are some of the reasons why you might consider upgrading. So let's look at the upgrade approaches. We've defined 3 of them: the as is, the standardization, and the hybrid. And we're going to talk about each of those three. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages and potential problems with each one? And as I said on the prior slide, every upgrade is an opportunity to improve. And this is something that we are all, of course, always looking to do. But there are challenges. So next slide, we're going to talk about choosing the right approach. And then we're going to dig into each approach and to kind of describe what each one looks like. So these are some things that you would want to do before you choose your approach. First thing is define the objective of your upgrade. So this goes back to the reasons to upgrade slide. Are you simply, for example, are you simply looking to upgrade in order to maintain supportability? If that's really all you're after, then that could affect your approach. If you're, on the other hand, if you're looking to use new features or improve your work processes, that could also influence your approach that you choose. One thing you would want to do is an analysis of the current SampleManager environment. This is so you can categorize what you currently have today. Obviously, in order to produce an upgrade, you need to know where you're starting from, and that gives you a vision of where you want to end up. So this kind of analysis needs to be done. You would have to weigh the cost benefits of each approach to make a decision. And then probably this last bullet is the key, is a kicker here. It requires a deep understanding of the current SampleManager custom code as well as the new version. So one problem that happens with that, and in my history of working in this arena for a long time, I've seen a lot of times that deep understanding is not available. The people who developed it and knew it the best are no longer with your company. Maybe they've retired or moved on. So in that case, you end up having to, you need help. So you have to reach out to a third party, a company that does do SampleManager consulting and analysis and knows a lot about it to analyze your environment. But you do need that analysis. Some factors that would influence the choice you would end up making. How much customization do you have in your system? That's one of the keys. And not just the amount of custom code that you have, but how integrated is it into the core SampleManager programs? I think anyone who's worked with SampleManager or has, is running it now knows that it's pretty highly modifiable. The version that you get from Thermo Fisher can be changed a lot. And so the amount that has been changed is going to certainly be a key factor that influences which upgrade approach you're going to take. The next one is corporate strategy. I have an example here. A company I worked for had used that as-is approach for over 10 years. They had been running SampleManager a long time and had always done as-is approaches, but their corporate strategy changed. They had a directive that they were going to begin using industry standard software or also commercial off-the-shelf software. And so that strategy drove their upgrade approach, and it completely changed it 180 degrees.